Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well, you made it through the holiday weekend. Today's Monday, the 6th of July. Um, it was a good weekend. Yeah, no, I didn't go out and do the celebration stuff, but I did go into what I call my basement and I shredded. I put stuff aside to give away, put stuff aside to throw away. So I'm into this pandemic where I'm understanding I'm going to come out on the other side a little bit different, where I've accomplished a few things. And this morning I kind of apologized for the light. I couldn't get any good light in the house this morning. It's dark outside, so I did put on a light on a lamp here, hoping that you can see me and I don't look too shiny. This cheek look a little shiny, but that's okay. I understand that's a good cheek. That's the cheek. That is the cheek. Good morning, T. How are you? So hopefully it was a good enough weekend where come Monday morning you're glad to not only see me but you're glad to be. So many people didn't get a good morning this morning, or they didn't make it to morning at all. Their life ended. I was listening this morning about this I think his name was Nick Carderas, but he was a Broadway star, and I had been following him on the TV. They kept bringing him up about what a good actor he was, and basically he lost his life overnight to COVID-19. And I don't know why people aren't understanding that the disease is a horrible disease. And it says you can start out where you don't have any symptoms at all, and then you can go to feeling fine today, and same day you feel bad, and then you go into where you can't breathe, or you lose your smell, and you lose your ability to taste anything. I don't want the disease, so I'm doing my best, my darndest, not to bring it in. And certainly when I go out, I'm trying to always be covered up. Incidentally, tomorrow I will not be here. I took on another job, so I'm going to be helping some folks out in the community. So I have a training tomorrow, but that's just tomorrow. But I'll be back. I'm not going far. I'll have a RU stuck every day. The Lord says He's going to give it to me to bring it to you. I got it. I got it. And today we are going to talk about to listen. So many of us do not listen. We talk while other people are talking, so we didn't hear anything. And then we speak before we even got the message as to what we should be responding to or responding about. So I hope today's lesson will certainly talk about the listening we need to do versus the kind of listeners that we used to be, or that we still are. That we still are. My daughter always says that I've already anticipated the end when I'm talking with her. Sometimes I do, because the conversation wasn't going in the direction that I wanted it. But sometimes we can't always determine the outcome of a conversation. We can determine how we feel about it, and certainly if we wait long enough, we won't feel the same. If we wait long enough, we will not feel the same about a conversation. But today we are going to talk about the art of listening and being someone that will listen. So I'm going to start off with my poem, and today's poem is called The Art of Listening by Jonathan Drain. And it says, I knew something of conversation, so I thought, until I listened to another, knew something of the talk, the sounds, the chatter. But to listen and to speak when moments call, that is far greater. Of conversations past, I no longer can remember, since the day I silent kept and listened to another. There opened up a life which had it till then been merely shadow. At first the life it seemed another's, but when I was caught, and by the mirror, the face had changed. It told me of another. Since the day I silent kept and listened to another. Meaning sometimes you just have to be quiet long enough to hear, good morning, Ruby, what the true conversation is that's going on. And sometimes people can be talking at you and not to you. You have to determine that. And sometimes you are listening you're not listening to what is being said. So then you respond to the wrong thing. You may respond out of anger. You may respond out of hurt, disbelief, lying, whatever. There's a possibility that something could be wrong with the conversation that went on between you and someone else. Good morning, Jean. And so when we look at to listen, we have to be observant on what is being said. And then before we respond, we need to know what we're responding to. I've seen a conversation, and sometimes as a counselor, I used to do like this little mediation between a husband and a wife, or a child and a parent, or whatever was going on. And a lot of times what happened is that the person doing the talking was not heard. So therefore there was misinterpretation of what was being really stated. And sometimes that's what happens to us. We've misrepresented what we're trying to say, or we don't say it well, or we miss how to say it. we just miss it. And so therefore there's a problem. There's a problem with that piece that we were trying to get across. And we've all had that. We've all experienced being misunderstood. Why? Because whoever we were talking to did not hear us. They didn't hear us at all. Good morning, Joan. So today when we talk about listen, we want to be exact as to what listen is. And here's what it says. It's according to Marion now. Okay, it says listen. It says take notice of or on what someone says and respond to the advice or whatever the request is. Because sometimes people in their conversations with us are requesting something. Sometimes they're stating something. Sometimes they're accusing you of something. So you have to listen to find out, where do you jump in on this conversation, or you check all the way out. And a lot of times we've already checked out before the person spoke. Why? Because there's something else there. There may be some dislike, distrust, disbelief, whatever. And they've already set the tone for you. That's your personal opinion. Because when we listen to people, we also pay attention to some other things they're nonverbal. Maybe how they looked, maybe they were pointing at me, or they were angry at me, or there something else was going on. There was something else being played. So so it says to listen when you're giving someone attention to sound, because that's what it is. You're looking at what you're hearing, what you're paying attention to. Are you all ears? Are you being attentive? Are you lending your ears? Because they said, lend me your ear, lending an ear. And what are you hearing? All those things talk about when we truly listen, what are we hearing? And therefore, what do we respond to? And some people can turn us off so much that every time they speak, okay, like you can turn on your TV, and I'm quite sure you've heard so much of the rhetoric, so much of the tone, so much of the divisiveness of what's on the squawk box, that we end up, either taking sides or just turn into another channel. Good morning, Bobby. How are you? So we may turn to the channel or go someplace else. You can't always turn the channel in your house when somebody's talking to you. You can't always turn it from your boss or your coworkers. Sometimes you have to still remain to be working with them. So you have to look at, how does listening play out for you? And are you really being a good listener and not putting other things on it? Because to me, you can dress up a pig, but a pig is still a pig. You can, you could put some lipstick and a wig hat, like Good morning, Belinda, like Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy was dressed up, but she was still a pig. She was still a pig. So that's what I'm talking about. So sometimes you have to go down to wherever you need to get to make sure that you're really listening attentively and not really putting in all of what I call the extras, the extra stuff, even though they brought it with them. So, people will do what they do. They do what they do. They really do. So anyway, the L of listening, good morning, Kiwanis. The L of listen is to learn. And it says to learn is to acquire knowledge, to understand something or of a skill set, to understand the experience of study and the experience of being taught. Those are all the things that talk about what learning is. Now, a lot of us, we learn from when we're children all the way up. Good morning, Leslie. We learn from as children throughout life. There's not a day that goes by that you can't learn something, And to me, if you're the only one teaching yourself, you need to get some more around some other people, read a book, watch a documentary, something that teaches you more than you knew, And so it talks about when we look at learning or to learn, we're looking at what we assimilate. And I always talk about I never have assimilate without accommodate, because I believe when things have been assimilated, we can accommodate them. We really can. And it also talks about looking at what you can acquire from what you didn't know before. You can study something, you can experience something, you can be taught things, you can know more than what you knew before. And it says, of course, you can be an apprentice up under somebody, and certainly you can be one who absorbs things. All those have to do with what learn is as it relates to listening. So to be a good listener and to learn from what someone is doing, or maybe something that you don't want to do, you have to listen to people. Lectures, what are they? Lecturers, you listen to them. Comedians, you listen to them. Commentary. All those things are what we hear. We're listening to somebody. But a lot of times we get to the end of the conversation because they had what I call superfluous bull in the middle of what they were trying to teach. You miss track. You get off track. You stop listening to them, or you drift. And I mean, put it in the thread. If you were a student who could draw instead of listen, or you could daydream, or whatever it is that you did, doodle, if you were a doodler, put it down there. Because a lot of us are. I really wasn't a doodler. I would try to take, I was always taught if I take as many notes as I can, someplace within this boring conversation that this lecture is giving me, I'm going to learn something. So that, and what it did is it taught me how to write a whole bunch of information down and then have some way of going to check on whatever it is they said. It's the same thing with the Bible. When you go to church, a lot of people never open their Bible. Well, I remember one time going to someone's church. It wasn't my church. I'm going to tell you right now, it was not my church, but I went to someone's church and they said something. Good morning, Miss Rosie. They said something that I didn't think. I said, I got to look that up. So I remember looking it up, and what they said and giving the scripture to it didn't agree. So I wrote on the side, I said, that doesn't sound right. That's not what that means. And it says that you should know the Bible for yourself. It does say that. But sometimes we just listen and we never look back to find out what was being taught was really the proper thing that was really being stated by the passage they gave or the resources they say they, sent you to. Sometimes we just never know. We just never know. So anyway, then we go to the I, and the I is to be informed. When you're listening to somebody, you're being informed of something, and inform is to be, it looks at being well informed, to be knowledgeable, to be brought up to date, to be brought up to speed. Good morning, Sharon. It says to be enlightened, to be literate, to be educated. So once again, education is still there again. You're still talking about what is it about listening to people. It says having or showing knowledge of something that you've heard, a particular subject or situation. That's all about what, listening does, to people if you're really informed about something. But some of us do not become knowledgeable by what somebody told us, because we look it up for ourselves and we become knowledgeable about what they left out or what we need to add to. That's what we learn. We learn that to me, that's when you listen to somebody. And also when you're listening, you're being enlightened about something. And it says you're being educated, you're being literate. So all those things talks about what informed comes about when you're looking at listening to someone. And I know, and I hope everyone has found somebody that they can listen to, and and it leads them always back to finding out more things for themselves. Just listening to somebody just is the start of a conversation. But to continue the conversation within yourself is when you go and you decide you're going to look up something. You're going to find out more about this thing that started with the 5-minute conversation, 2-minute conversation. Now you got to find out more for yourself. Oh, Leslie says, I think it applies to social media too. Absolutely. I find that social media and people feeling that they're putting in conversations between people, I know this for a fact. As a counselor, people have a tendency to write things, but writing things without the emotional attachment to it sometimes has the other person believing that more was said that wasn't, or more was meant that really wasn't. And so sometimes there's misunderstanding, and I've seen that play out on social media a long time, with people actually arguing a point. And I have this thing about listening where I feel that everybody has their opportunity to give a point. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to accept it. If it's not yours, it's not yours. It's okay. It's really okay. The next word on that I gave for listen is to speak. Obviously, LIS is to speak. And speak really talks about when somebody says something and it could be heard. Okay? Have you ever talked to somebody in church and what they say is so loud that everybody else heard it? And, church, like libraries, are not supposed to be, much conversation. You're supposed to be paying attention to the preacher, the music, or you're going to pay attention to the books that you're reading in the library. So, so that's what they look at that for. So I always used to get tickled when my brother and I would say something to each other, and my mother would give us that dirty look in church. Well, the dirty look was for, you're not supposed to be talking up in here. That's what the dirty look was for. But we would laugh at it anyway. We would laugh at that. Right down in the thread, if you knew your folks told you had been caught doing something you hadn't doing, which was talking, in a place that shouldn't have been going on. Funerals, same thing. Church, funerals, libraries, where else? Where else? But anyway, when you're really talking about speaking, you're talking about to really look at how people sometimes in their speech, they give you advice. They give you declaration. They tell all. How about them, the tell all people? You're going to hear a voice. You hear them articulate certain things or emanate certain things or vocalize or verbalize or scold. Have you been scolded or chastised by somebody speaking to you? As children, absolutely. Courtroom, yes, that's right, Bobby. That's right. That's right. You better look, judge will put you out, won't he? Or she. It says rebuke, chad, all these things. They do all these things to you. Castigate, express. All those things really talk about what speaking does. And so when we hear somebody speak, sometimes they may have a higher volume. They may do, like I used to, when I first started teaching, I had some kids that were just a bunch of rowdy kids. And, I wasn't a regular teacher, so they would act up. So when they started yelling, I would get smaller and my voice would get smaller, smaller. Well, you can't yell and listen to me. So they would, all of a sudden, they'd stop so they could hear what I was telling them. So sometimes, you have to go in the opposite direction of somebody yelling. Either you have to stop talking at all, altogether, or you have to be quiet. Good morning. Good morning. Anyway, the next word on our list for listen is telling. Now, you know what telling is. It says telling, having a striking or revealing effect that's significant. Haven't you ever heard where they called people tattletales when they were little? Well, they got tattletales in adulthood too. Adults are tattletalers. They could come and tell you something about somebody. It says something that could be revealing or significant or convincing, persuasive, forceful, potent, powerful, strong, cogent, compelling, weighty, important, meaningful, influential, effective, and of course effectual. So all those, and sometimes even with when you're looking at telling something, they could be telling a lie. I will not tell a lie. Sometimes telling tells on people because it will come back out later on that it was a lie. There was no truth to it. But people are no different from each other, except they either will tell a lie, or they'll tell a bigger lie, or they'll tell the biggest lie ever. That may have criminal and possibility to it. So you just never know. You never know. So you have to have a discerning ear and a spirit to understand that if it sounds crazy, it may be crazy. Good morning, Sean, my little nephew. If it sounds like it shouldn't be dealt with, then maybe you shouldn't deal with it. If it sounds like you shouldn't deal with them because of that telling of business. Because what if they tell something on you that was sworn to secrecy? And I always tell that thing about starting the telephone where the story starts here, and the story, by the time the story gets back around the circle, the story has changed tremendously. Well, that's what happens because people don't always listen as well as they should to get the result of what was really started out to be maybe positive when it first started out, or maybe it was a negative and it ended up being even more negative only because people added something to it. And sometimes you never know in a conversation what will be added or subtracted. Absolutely, Joan. Malicious gossip. That's right. That is right. So telling sometimes tells on everybody. Telling also has a possibility of being extremely hurtful, extremely shaming, extremely distracting of friendships, of workships, of all those things. There are the possibilities. They are sometimes lying on themselves. Right. That's right. To preserve the life they have created. That's true. There's a lot of people who not, they're not who we see them as. They're not. And the lie has to continue, because I think that if you've woven a really good lie, like most people are in the small things. They may lie about how many biscuits they ate or how many donuts. But they're not going to lie. Most people, I don't believe, having been around a while, that they don't lie about huge things. At one time, I can tell you something about my family. I had a cousin, and I think I related something to her last week when I was talking about, just having sometimes to live differently. And she was so fair-skinned, is that they thought she was white. So when she would go in and put in that she was black, they would they would erase that she was black, and they would put down that she was white. So she lived during the day, she lived and had a good job based on the color of her skin. It wasn't based on how she felt. It wasn't based on her beliefs. It was based on what they would accept and allow her to work under. So sometimes, the lie you start may be the lie you continue. So none of her coworkers knew that she was black. That's life. That is life. And sometimes we have to live in what we've been given. And in this instance, it was based on what everybody else felt that she looked like. And so during the day, that's how she lived. She lived as a nurse that looked white and worked as a white woman. The E in listen is for entertain. Now, I know you all know that you've listened to some people that are absolutely entertaining. You love to hear them talk. They have something to say. There's something going on, and they make you laugh, or they can make you, get into your feelings or have sympathy, whatever it is. But you've been entertained by people. And Leslie says they sometimes are lying to themselves. Yeah, I read that one. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I keep up with my thread. But anyway, when somebody being entertained, it says they're given attention to. It could be an idea, suggestion, or a feeling. Provide someone with amusement or enjoyment. That's what to be entertained is. It says to please, to divert, to distract, to charm, to cheer, to engage, to involve, to occupy, immerse, engross, and hold the attention of. All those things speak to what entertaining does. And so we've seen it. We look at comedians. There's some comedians you can just say their name and they're funny. You can just think about them and you think of what they do is funny. Some of them might be animated comedians, like Carol Burnett used to be, or like Hart is now, like he's a funny comedian. Eddie Murphy, all of these people that they chose the life of being entertainers, but they entertain and people listen to them. And so sometimes, good morning, Felicia. Sometimes in the course of people entertaining you, they've also taught you something. They've also taught you something. They may be teaching you their pain. They may be teaching you what pain looks like. They may be teaching you what discrimination looks like. They may be teaching you what inferiority looks like, because a lot of times when you have entertainers, they also are building off of things that they've experienced. And their experience, good morning, Shirley, they've experienced something that is so raw, so different for them that they know how to make it work for them in the future. They didn't in the past, because the past they dealt with the hurt. Going forward, they stood up on their hurt. They stood up on their pain. They stood up on their anguish. And like you can hear it. You can hear it. Even Dave Chappelle is a brilliant. He's a brilliant comedian, because his mother, he comes from good stock. His mother is a professor. And so, good morning, Maurice. When she raised him, she always exposed him to things that were what they would call leverage. He got to see the underbelly of something, but then he got to see the top of something, the sides of something. And sometimes we don't always get to see all of the sides, but to be creative, if you have that creative portion in your brain, when you speak, you could entertain. When you speak, you can draw information to people and also from people. And so to me, I think entertainment is so powerful, to be a part of listening. If we really listen, we may be entertainers ourselves. We may have something to say. We may have something to be learned. We may have something to be taught. We learn, we teach. To me, that's passing it on. My prayer is that when I leave the world, that I've taught somebody something, about getting to the who they are, understanding that we are going to get stuck. We're all going to be who we are. Yes, Tyler Perry, absolutely. Tyler Perry, down the bottom, all the way down the bottom of how he was raised. Even Richard Pryor, same kind of lifestyle, where, you slept where you slept, you ate what you were going to eat, and the house may be of ill repute. It didn't matter. They still grew up and they stood up on all the things that made them who they are, which to me is vital. We don't always understand our vital. We don't always understand, being the 13th child in a crowded house and there's no beds and, sleeping 5 and 6 in a bed. We all don't understand that. But it happened. It happened. It happened out of their necessity. But it also happened for them to have a platform. And they actually ended up with platforms based on how they were raised. The last letter in listen is notable. Most of the time when we listen to people, we're looking at how worthy is the attention we're giving them. How noticeable is it? How remarkable is it? How, distinguished is it? How great is it? And sometimes we don't even realize that we've given these people all of this. Yeah, Trevor, no, that's right. Absolutely. That's true, Miss Joan. So we don't even realize all the things that make us up to be who we are later on in life. But we've been through something. And some things are meant for you to live through them and never tell them. Other things are just for you to make them creative forms of the new you. The fact that you can learn and you can teach and you can, be mindful of helping others come on through, because sometimes that's all that happens with people. If they've heard somebody that they can identify with, that they can listen to, then the listening is important, and what the information you're putting out is important to them. So sometimes you have to be careful about delicate ears. Even little children. What they hear is what they emulate. And I think I've said this before, that a child, when they come here, they don't know anything about prejudice. What they know is that somebody loves them. And if you teach in love, teach love. If you're going to teach them not to be prejudiced, then you have to teach that. Like, I'm from New York, and I was born and raised in a multicultural area. We had there were Jewish people, there were blacks, obviously, of many families. We also had Italian. I spoke Italian when I was little, lost it a little bit now. We also had Polish. We had Spanish. We had German. All those people, we all lived in the same area of New York. Okay? And we were raised like that. And my brother still lives up there now, and all of the grandchildren and nieces and nephews, so they're still in New York. But you have to understand that was what was notable about all of that, was that nobody, even though I knew I was black, they occasionally called me out my name, but guess what? It wasn't what I was believing, because my parents told me always different. My parents always told me that's not who you are. Who you are is what you plan to be. You're going to be, hopefully you're going to be raised up well by us. And when you get older, you're going to make some decisions that make it where you just keep going. You keep going. So, neither one of my parents ever lived long enough. Neither one of them lived long enough to see me get they saw me get my master's. Well, my mother did. And I got my doctorate a year and a half. Good morning, Lawson, nephew in New York. I got my doctorate a year and a half after my mother passed. But anyway, what I'm saying to you is that, listen, it's vital, it's important, it's a necessity. It is absolutely a necessity. So when I go to my questions today on listen, here's my questions. Question number 1. Are you a good listener? Be honest. Are you? Do you listen, or do you talk while someone else is talking? Number 2. When you listen to others, is your attention gone once they strike a chord? Once they strike a issue that bothers you? Or do you continue to listen? That's number 2. Number 3. Do you look to being informed when listening to others, or are you only just, what I would say, placating them? You're not really interested in what they have to say. Be honest. Number 4, do you enjoy a good conversation with you and others when they are speaking and you are speaking back to them? Do you enjoy a good conversation? Sometimes we don't. Okay, number 5, telling a story. Is it gossip or is it the truth? Telling a story. Don't know. Sometimes your story could be gossip or your story could be the truth. Hopefully it's not. The next question is, do you enjoy, like, or attend, lectures, entertainment shows such as comic reviews, or what I call, musical concerts, or church? All those things, certainly someone is speaking in between whatever else they're doing. Even singing is a form of speech. And the last question is, do you place a value on what to listen to and determine if it is notable? Do you place a value on what you listen to, and if you do, is it notable? So those are all I have for today. I'm hoping you're going to have a good day. You're going to pay attention to what you're listening to. Let's see, we need to listen with respect. Absolutely. That should be high up on the list. That's right. to another person to know is paying attention, because each individual opinion is noteworthy, whether we agree with it or not. That's true. I agree with that. I do. I've listened to a lot of folks that I knew that what they were talking I didn't believe, but guess what? I never try to disrespect what they have to say. Everybody does have an opinion, and they should. They should. Everybody should have an opinion. But those are the things on listening. I want you to listen today. Aw, hey Keisha. I want everybody to listen today and pay attention to what someone is saying to you. Always look at what you're saying to other people before you speak, especially if it's a conversation, because conversations can be derailed real quickly if we misrepresent what we were trying to say, or we raise our voices, or certainly we use offensive language. So have a great day. I won't be here tomorrow because we're going to do a training all day, but I will be here on Wednesday, and I'll have something special for you. I think Wednesday I'm going to do something on passion. So think of all your passion things that we can talk about, and that's going to be our happy Wednesday, okay, our hump day. But I want you to have a wonderful day. I appreciate you for coming. I love it when you scroll. I love it more because you stop. I appreciate it to high heavens that you stay and listen. And lastly, I am overjoyed with just great gratefulness that you all will share this. So share this video. Have a great day. I love you, all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.